You do seem very fixated on this issue of the transgender young people. And where does that come from? Why is that something that you care so much about?
There's a couple reasons. I think the most proximal, to the degree that I've articulated this and understand this about myself, but the most proximal is I'm fundamentally concerned about the polarization between the left and right. And I think that the gender issue, what is a woman, blah, 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 all this different stuff, that is the front line of the fundamental philosophical dispute between, let's say, the religious right and the atheist progressive left or whatever. I remember this in church, how much they emphasized it. And I didn't understand it until I thought about it later in life as an adult. They constantly emphasized there's no such thing as your truth or my truth. There's only the truth. Right. And this is like at 10 years old, 15, 16, 17 years ago.
Yes.
Why was the church emphasizing that? Because that's the key philosophical position of the right. There is some sort of moral objective truth. And then the key, I would say, philosophical position of the left is that, truth is conditioned by power and social factors, which is like true, of course. And so the question of like, well, what is a woman? Can a man be a woman? All that stuff. It's like, that is the most obvious touch point where you have, and I don't mean this in a negative way, right wing, left wing. I'm just right-wing belief of there is objective moral truth. God made man in his image, and God made man and woman. And then there's the left-wing perspective of, well, that belief in and of itself it's exclusionary to transgender people. And, what something means objectively is less important than making space for people or something like that, right? If I'm trying to semi-steel man each side. And so that issue, getting that issue correct is, I think, critical in addressing the overall polarization and the fact that it's so ubiquitous. Everyone has a touch point with it, right? Everyone, even if you're not political at all, you're aware of the sort of the transgender issues. Gender and sex are sort of fundamental parts of people's identities and stuff. So that's why I think that issue has so much salience, and that's why I focus on it a lot.
Okay, but this is the thing, right? So the Republican Party has been leaning very heavily into this issue as of late, and it doesn't seem to be yielding, great results for them.
On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care.
When people might be sort of broadly more on the conservative side, like when you poll the sort of general American public and you ask them what they think about this, that, or the other, they'll, perhaps be more on the conservative side when it comes to, transitioning stuff for young people in particular. But that said, I think there's also a significant evidence to suggest that the Republican Party's fixation on this issue strikes a lot of voters as weird and obsessive. Totally. And that this is not remotely the top priority should be the top priority of the American sort of political class at all. And so it does kind of like, what do you think of the position of the Republican Party on this issue? Do you think they're playing good politics by talking about this as much as they are?
Well, okay, like what did Michael Knowles say? We're going to eradicate transgenderism at CPAC.
Yeah.
To me, that is, Michael Knowles is as bad as any leftist who says, well, I want to eradicate whiteness. Right? There's people on the left who are very extreme. Well, we want to eradicate white. Well, we don't mean white people. We just mean whiteness, the ideology. And you have all these intellectual rationalizations. It's like, okay, it's interesting because Julius Malema in South Africa says the exact same stuff. We're going to cut the throat of whiteness and all that. And then you have all of the issues with white farmers in South Africa. So it's like interesting that the same rhetoric that you claim is not harmful, or we're just talking about the ideology, is used by the people who are using it in exactly the way that everyone who has any common sense understands it would be used. And it's the same thing for the Republicans who say, well, we want to eradicate trans. It's like, no. You don't eradicate transgenderism. I believe we should eradicate the incentives of the pharmaceutical industry that push surgery for young children. That's fine. That's completely different from transgenderism, which very clearly can be conflated with transgender people. So I think that's disgusting. I think that's borderline genocidal rhetoric. And Jordan Peterson, interestingly enough, which I'd like to talk to you a little bit about your thoughts on Peterson at some point.
Yeah.
The person that has influenced me most in my political and philosophical views is definitely Jordan Peterson. And one of the key things he pointed out is what happens in places like Nazi Germany or communist Russia, where the rhetoric escalates and things go off the rails. And one of the key features of the rhetoric is heightened disgust rhetoric, referring to people as parasites, leeches that need to be destroyed.
And that was a manifestation of disgust, not of fear. It's a whole different thing.
Drag phobia, they say. First of all, it's not phobia. It's drag, drag disgust, drag nausea, one of those words. It's not a phobia. You don't scare me. I'm scared on behalf of the kids. I'm scared for the kids that are being exposed to this stuff and the effect it's going to have on them. But no one's afraid of you.
And the thing about something that's disgusting is you don't isolate it exactly. You destroy it, right? It's the thing you do with rats and insects, for example, is destroy them.
So with this is not compromise, okay? All we can do with this is crush it, destroy it. That's what you do with evil. And that's what we have to do with this.
So eradication is exactly in line with that. And Matt Walsh saying, well, we can't compromise with this. This is evil. All we can do is crush it and destroy it. That is, that has the potential for severe negative consequences as anything that I target on the left. But I think it's important to not be like, oh, well, the bigger problem is the stuff on the right. It's like, no. I want to be the sane person in the middle, rightfully saying, hey, if you have adult men taking off their clothes around young children, which there are videos of, and Matt Walsh harps on them all the time, it's the job of sane people in the center to say, yes, of course that's disgusting. Any reasonable person can agree. And of course, saying we should eradicate transgenderism, therefore, is an overreaction. And you have to have people who have that spine to say that.